Welcome, Superphiz, to the Wholesome Crypto podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate you taking the time out.
Hey, thanks, Rudy. I'm really excited. This, as we said before, I look forward to just meeting new people and hanging out. So This is an honor.
Yeah, this is exactly what I want this to be. I just want to learn more about you, who you are, and how you got into the whole industry, because I know you're doing so much right now with sharing knowledge of what Ethereum staking is all about, how it works, and the transformation between ETH1 and ETH2, which is, for everyone that doesn't know yet, it's just the same Ethereum. And I know you push that a lot, so I'll have to learn more about that. But before we get into all the crypto stuff, I want to know, about you and how you got started in the industry and how you even first got into tech. Where were you when you were like a kid first seeing your electronic device?
Oh, yeah. I've always been obsessed with, it was originally probably mechanical devices. As I grew up, it became more electric oriented. And so I would say probably in middle school, I was fascinated. I would sit in gym and talk with the other nerdy kids about we didn't really know anything because you didn't have the internet then, but we talked about like RISC processors, and we didn't really know the language we were using, but we would still try to, just chat and begin to understand what we could.
Yeah, if it made sense to you guys, then it's okay.
Yeah. And so through those friends, I got involved with the local BBS system, and that's like a bulletin board system. And that was in, the early 90s. And I got connected there with some older, like high school kids who knew more about computers. And I ended up getting a Commodore Amiga computer.
Oh, wow.
It would be a Amiga 500, I think. And, running my own bulletin board system and just loving community. And I was probably a lot more trollish, but
everyone is as a kid.
I just loved interacting with people, and especially, online. I've always been most comfortable behind a keyboard, more comfortable than, I'm socially comfortable in general, but I still prefer this mode of interaction.
Mm-hmm. Ever since middle school. Is it because more like behind a keyboard, it's not necessarily behind a keyboard, but the people you're talking to on that screen is very like-minded in the same way that you're trying to present and like try to engage in a community?
I do struggle finding, I won't lie. I enjoy echo chambers. I enjoy being around people who think similarly to me. I feel like I grow better that way. Mm-hmm. And also behind a keyboard, I have more opportunity to think about what I'm saying. I have a tendency to maybe speak more quickly than I should. Mm-hmm. And when just the act of having to type it out causes me to slow down and be more deliberate about what I'm going to say. And I kind of like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, for me, it's the same way. I kind of like speak before I think sometimes in public settings. Yeah. So I'm like, when I'm like typing something out, especially in a tweet, I'm like, wait a minute, how do I really want to say this? What do I really mean?
Yeah. But that's beyond this, Superphiz is a nice guy. And like my persona is being a nice guy, but I'm also a real person. And so, there is like frustration and hot-headedness and foolishness that comes out. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like I'm better able to be the person I want to be behind a keyboard, where I may struggle with that more in real life.
Well, that's the thing. You're like, that's what I think of as a wholesome person. It's not necessarily that you're always kind, nice, generous. It's that you're just a real person who's genuine in what you're doing and saying, and nothing you do is coming out as ill-intentioned. It's just, you're a real person. There's no not being fake. But it's awesome that,
wholesomeness is something that I in some ways I like steer away from the word. Like it's too warm and fuzzy, but it is really my target. And without knowing your background, I guess I've seen you on Twitter a few times. I saw wholesome and I was like, that is a thing that's I align with that. Like, already, I don't have to know anything else. We align. Let's do this. So I like to reach for higher values, and it's not necessarily that I always meet them, but I think reaching for them is really a good goal.
Thank you. So now that you're in this industry now, you're I guess we were just talking about how you were in high school. You were working with high school seniors about learning more about new computers. was this a driving point for you to say, okay, this is where I'm going to take my career, my education, or was this just filling in some weird interest and curiosity?
It has always been an obsession with me. Technology, computers have always been an obsession. I've always been the computer guy.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
But yeah, going to college, I had kind of a difficult transition, between growing up in high school and college. And I really stumbled into college, literally, like more than I can even describe. And so I find myself in front of a registrar, and they're like, "So what is your major?" And I'm like, "I have no idea." They're like, "Well, you're going to be a business major." And I was like, something. "Okay." So yeah, I took business classes, and I was like, "This is not me. I do not care about money and transactions at all. I like people." So I switched to psychology then, and so I got my bachelor's degree in psychology, and I got a master's degree in counseling psychology, an educational specialist degree in school psychology, and a master's degree in school administration. None of those are worth anything now. Like, it was just,
you paid for it, right?
I did. I mean, it has helped me evolve as a person.
Yeah.
But all through that, I worked as a school psychologist and a school counselor for 15 years. I loved connecting with people, but I was also the guy who was like writing software to make the school run more smoothly, and like still obsessing over technology. It was an itch that I never got scratched.
Wow. And then, so you completed your college degrees and none of them are in any type of technical field?
That's right.
Wow. Yeah. Look at you now. It's like teaching people how to stake Ethereum.
Well, it's great because I can relate to people who don't understand the technical concepts. Like, my actual technical competency is pretty limited. I'm a basic programmer. And so I do understand many of the big concepts because I've been doing this 10 years. And so it really allows me to connect better with people who lack the technical concepts, but relate well on a personal level.
And that makes sense, because that's the hardest part, is like when you're trying to explain a topic that's just hard to understand, you have to be able to first create a relationship or relation with the person you're trying to educate and teach so they can be on the same level as you and then grow from there. That's amazing. So now that you're a counselor, is that the last position you were in before moving full-time into crypto, or are you in full-time crypto now?
No, yeah. So I left my counseling job in 2018, in May of 2018, because at the time I believed that staking was about to happen. And 3 years later, it actually did. So I left my work in 2018 and just sort of started looking around for, well, I'd already been involved in the community. Yeah. I knew a lot of people, but I was looking for holes that needed to be filled. And that's kind of where the ETH staker thing came around.
And that's your business persona, right? Where you have to find gaps in an industry and fill them. You have it in you, you just don't know you do. But when was the first time you heard about, I guess, Bitcoin or Ethereum? Since you're always into tech, was it something that just was on the internet and you saw, or like some friend came by, "Hey, Superphiz, this is the one. This is what you got to look into"?
Yeah. So I've always been on kind of /dot Hacker News, Reddit, kind of that's Hacker News. So I always I was the guy who left my job the moment it was over because that's what they're paying me for. Sorry, I thought my son was and I would go home and immediately spend, my afternoon researching technology because that's what I cared about. And so I would say it was like April 2011. I saw on /dot. I have this written down somewhere because I forget so easily. Just this reference of Bitcoin digital currency, and I had known about the work to kind of like the Nick Szabo stuff, like just the attempts to bring a digital currency. But when I saw that one, I was like, I saw Bitcoin, and the name just resonated with me so deeply. And so I essentially just stopped everything that I was doing, and I wouldn't say from a technical perspective, but from like a semi-technical perspective, tried to get involved, which means I didn't understand the protocol deeply, but I wanted to mine it and get some and be a part of it. And that's kind of how I got started.
Yeah, for me, it was like my brother and his friends, they're older, and they were talking about Bitcoin. I'm like, and again, for me, like when you talk about tech, I'm like, I'm going to invest as much time as I can because I was a kid. I had time to invest, but not money. But I remember just like reading about it, looking at Mt. Gox and how to buy it, and like Poloniex, and like first even, I think I remember Coinbase becoming a company. Like I remember them coming out. I was like, that was nuts for me.
I remember that. Yeah.
And it was, like you said, it was like it's a crazy gut feeling almost. Like this is something, but I don't know how to point my finger or describe it just yet. And I still have a hard time describing it, but
I was hilarious. Like the night that I discovered it. So I didn't have any real wealth then, and our computers were all like 15 years old. So I was still nerdy, but my computer, and I had a lot of computer hardware. It was just like eBay computer hardware, like stuff that I was able to cobble together. And so I didn't have anything that would actually successfully mine, but I still started with everything I could. I'm like, something, it might happen.
Yeah.
But I went downstairs and I told my wife, and I was like, there's this new thing. It's going to be really big. People are going to be talking about it.
Trust me.
And I sincerely believed, this is so hilarious, I sincerely believed that like the next day that it was just going to be everywhere. Like people were going to be chatting about it and, clamoring for it. And I really felt that way for like the next probably 6 or 8 months. Just thinking that at any moment, this is going to just explode and everyone's going to dive into it. So it was a surprise when every day I'm like, no one has heard of this.
Is it just me?
And then, people would start mentioning it and I'm like, whoa, oh my God, you said that word, the Bitcoin word. Yes, let's talk about this. So that was exciting.
I agree. Cause like now it feels like everyone's talking about it, because I go out at like restaurants, or if I'm just like walking around the park or something, I sometimes hear like NFT or Ethereum or like Bitcoin. I'm like, whoa, this is becoming a little bit more mainstream. Like it used to just be me. And like, I thought I was like the only one of my close group of friends that would talk about it. But that's so funny.
I can't tell if it's my bubble or if it's reality.
Yeah, it's tough to tell.
Maybe it's just people who I know who have like mentioned it and we're all interconnected. And like, is it really outside of our bubble or is it just us? So,
I mean, our news feed's probably full of crypto stuff because of internet algorithms, but.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome. So you first heard about it. You're like trying to, I guess, learn by mining and running these wallets on your hardware. That was only way back then. You had to now download those like QT wallets and run those.
I still have a hard drive somewhere. Like there's no coins on it, but I still have the old like the earliest version of the Bitcoin interface. And like we used what was the Pockle BM Python OpenCL Bitcoin miner. And I still have like hard drives that have that stuff on it because it's so neat to look back and be like, we've come so far.
Yeah, we did. Now that you're saying that, it's like kind of funny how old wallets remind me of like DSL. So you have to open the wallet, wait for all the transactions to finish syncing, and then you can start using it. Otherwise, you just have to wait. And I'm like, now you just hop onto MetaMask or you just turn on your ledger or whatever it is and start sending away.
It's neat. It gives that time relativity illusion where like when we were there, we were like, one day things are going to be better. And it seems like we're waiting 100 years for it to get better. And from that perspective, it takes forever. But then looking back, it's like, wow, that came really, really quickly. Like how fast things move. So it depends, like your relative perspective of how quickly it happens.
It's always an anticipation that gets you excited. So now that you're first learning about Bitcoin, this is what you're into. I know you're heavily into the Ethereum ecosystem now. So what made you like, when did you first hear about Ethereum, and like how did that stick to you as like, oh, this is what's going to also become the next big thing?
Yeah. So right now I happily describe myself as an ETH maxi, with the caveat that if something better comes along, then I allow myself to switch. So I was a Bitcoin maxi when we had Bitcoin, and then I discovered ETH and I was an ETH maxi. And if something better comes along, I want to have the foresight to say, this is better. I need to change. But I think I first discovered Ethereum when I think it would be honestly, I think in our Bitcoin, reading something that Vitalik had written like in 2014. And I guess the yellow paper started circulating. And to me, then we had been through an altcoin season where there were thousands of altcoins, and I checked out every one of them. And so I had developed this sense of what I would consider value. And I read, I don't know if it was there are so many colors. I think it was the Ethereum yellow paper maybe. And I was like, this is really interesting. I don't understand any of it, but it's really interesting. And so like, I kind of dove in, and I acknowledged like there's all this talk of contracts, and I'm like, I know this is a big deal, but I don't know how it's going to apply. Like, I don't know what it's going to look like. And so I talk to my friends, and I'd be like, look, I can't tell you how this works or what it is, but read it because it's really interesting, and I think it's going to be big. And they'd be like, well, we need to know why. You need to illustrate for us. And I'm like, I can't. I just know, like, I feel it. So yeah, I mined in the Ethereum Olympic network, Olympic testnet. And that's really where I got most of my ether through testnet mining. And then, the network launched, I guess, in June of 2015. And I sold like everything at like 97 cents because it stayed at 97 cents for maybe like 5 months. And I was like, I was wrong. It looked great, but lots of things look great and just don't happen. It's okay. It didn't happen. And so I like just unloaded my stash, and
oh man,
it's like I won. No, I did.
I mean, you learned a lot. You learned a lot. Yeah, you gained.
Yeah, I mean, I profited. Yeah, exactly. So, after that, I really moved communities from Bitcoin to Ethereum just because of the mentality of the communities. So I had spent most of my time in our Bitcoin, but getting comfortable with places like ETH mining and ETH Trader back in the day, like those were places where I really felt more welcome. And now, of course, that's ETH Finance. And so when it comes to where I spend my time, I'm more driven by a good community than I am by a good technology. And I love it when I find that both of those in the same place.
Yeah, and you're a moderator for a lot of the subreddits of like ETH Finance, ETH Staker, and POAPs. And how did you get into that?
Honestly, I don't consider myself a moderator at all.
Okay.
I don't love rules. I don't love like external like
enforcements.
Yes. So I'm much more a fan of encourage people to do good things and discourage them from doing stupid things. Like that's really my moderation. And so I think it's hard to say like, so I'm a moderator of ETH Staker just because that's kind of the community that I developed. And then through interactions with POAP and ETH Finance, I was just kind of welcomed on board. But I prefer communities where there's a strong, healthy growth ethos, and that community members are really free to do within that what makes sense. So I'm not the guy who's like deleting 1,000 comments. Like it doesn't really work for me. In fact, my moderation is often if I moderate, it's on ETH Staker, and I say, hey, we're so glad you're here, but we have this ethos of being welcoming first and knowledgeable second, and it would be great if your future comments would kind of align with that. Like, ooh, that's the heavy hand of Fizz.
And that's like also a message to anyone else who's like reading, like, hey, this is how we want to align our ethos. That's actually a pretty awesome way to do it. I think it's like not just stopping, kicking out. It's also educating everyone else around who's watching. Sweet. So now you're heavily into the community. You're like knowledgeable about Ethereum. We're still in the proof of work phase, and you're reading about proof of stake. How did that make you feel initially? Because a lot of people, it's still like a back and forth between proof of work and proof of stake. And for me, sometimes it's easier to actually explain how proof of work works versus proof of staking. And this is also a question for myself is like, as someone who educates people on proof of stake, how do you simply describe staking? Or how does that help the network any more than proof of work?
Yeah, and that's one of my favorite things is trying to distill that to like, what are the fundamental concepts? And the fundamental concept is that you post a bond to the network and say, here's my 32 Ether. I promise to do accurate work. And the network's like, hey, he's putting a bond up. He's promising to do good work. Let's give him a shot. So you then have the opportunity to propose blocks. If you're chosen, you can propose a block. And if you do a great job, then you get a reward. And if you lie, you'll lose some of your Ether. In the meantime, you also get to look at the work of other people and say, yes, this is true. Yes, this is true. It's like every 6 minutes, you get to look at someone else's work and say, are they lying or are they telling the truth? And so if they're doing a great job, you get the opportunity to vouch for them, and you get a tiny payment for that. But if you're not online, then you will leak a little bit of your bond. And if you lie, you'll lose a lot of your bond. That's the simple way of it. A lot of people don't understand why you would have to lock up your Ether. And that comes to this problem called nothing at stake. It essentially means that, like, if you didn't lock something up, then you could do anything you wanted on the network and no one would have any reason to trust you.
Yeah.
That bond means you have something at stake so that people know you're telling the truth, because there's also something that can be taken away from you if you lie.
That makes sense. And that's actually a very, very good way of explaining it too, because that's how I kind of try to explain it, but I think you articulated it a little better. Thank you. And in your whole work towards showing more of, or explaining how proof of stake works, was like, you have a series of YouTube videos that are, again, amazing, definitely worth watching if anyone's listening. Is this like something you've started creating because it's, again, more for the community, or like you said, you were still learning yourself and you kind of didn't quite get it, so it was an opportunity to self-teach while hopefully helping others?
I do often understand that perspective of I learn by teaching, but for this, it's more of just a passion for the network. Like I hate to say, I use the L word, but I love the Ethereum network. Like I am so excited about the Beacon chain, and as one person, the most that I can do for the Beacon chain is encourage other people to make it healthier and more robust. And that's, I call myself the Beacon chain health consultant. Like I want to talk to people about why it matters how you stake. I want to talk about, like, there's just one of my favorite ideas is, I struggle with this every single day. Is the network just a collection of bits that has no morality, no conscience, no values? Or is the network really the group of people and their combined morals and values? And so after struggling with that for a long time, I really feel like the network is a representation of the morals and values of the people that operate the network. The network is a manifestation of the operators. And so with that, like, I want to educate people to make the best choices they can to promote the health and decentralization of the Beacon chain. That is literally all I am. I want to improve decentralization and health of the chain. So that's what I talk about. It's what I do. If I move that needle literally one atom, then it's okay. Like, it was worth it. I'm happy I did it.
Yeah, and it is definitely working because your reference to often of someone to go look at or look for or talk to just to understand more about staking, because it is a weird concept to understand in terms of, like, finance is weird to understand in general, how we have it structured, especially in the States. It's like hard to understand investing, getting dividends for investing, and different bonds and ETFs. Like, you have to get a degree for this sometimes. And now you're putting all that into
yeah.
technology. And I'm like, oh God, this is even harder to explain because at least with one, you can kind of see what's going on. This one's like, you have to learn the programming or protocols to really understand it. And yeah, it's like, yeah, what you're doing is definitely needed and definitely helping out, even for myself. So thanks.
It's good. Like I would want someone that other people trusted that I could look to and say, what is the advice that person is giving?
Mm-hmm.
And that is, I try to be that person. And I don't have to be that for everyone, but if someone's looking for that, then I want them to have someone.
And it's awesome. And I'm excited to see more videos come up. And I guess as you're looking at different, right now, obviously you said there's directly from the Ethereum's protocol is 32 ETH that needs to be staked. I know a lot of projects are coming out trying to make that a little bit easier for people who don't have 32 ETH because it's a lot of money now. Not easy to get that. So people are like, for myself, who want to stake maybe what they can, which is, I know a few projects that you work with is like Rocket Pool. I know Coinbase is coming out with staking. Stakewise is out there. Lido is a bunch more. Is this like never-ending research for you? How do you feel with all these like projects coming out, and are you excited for any of them in particular?
I would say I'm chomping at the bit, and that is because like the first year of the Beacon Chain, there were no products that I could be excited about. Like, or not, I mean, that's not true because I was excited about them. They just didn't meet this. They didn't meet my standard, and I hold a very high standard for what I believe is healthy for the network. And so there are a lot of these projects that got out of the gate as quickly as they could, and they began accepting funds. And while some of them are well-intentioned, I believe most of those products are money seeking. Like they want to enrich their bags as quickly and heavily as they can. I don't have a problem with that. I think it's great. I think, there are a lot of people who are in the space to make money. More power to them. I'm happy to support them. But when it comes to products that, as the Beacon Chain Health Consultant, I can say, this is a good choice. This is going to enrich you and it's going to enrich the network, and I'm happy to support it.
Mm-hmm.
Rocket Pool is literally the first product that I can say, this decentralizes the network. They have aligned goals. They operate trustlessly. They'll never have access to your funds. And so it's odd because I know that for some people I come across as a Rocket Pool shill. And that's really not my goal. My goal is to be a decentralization shill. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have 32 Ether, the next best recommendation is Rocket Pool. And the other products that exist, if they're right for you, that's great. Use them. But I'm not comfortable promoting them to other users. I do hope that in time they evolve and meet that minimum standard and exceed it, because I want things to get better. I don't want, say, like if we all stake with Coinbase and the network looks like this pie that is literally Coinbase, we don't have a decentralized network. We have a Coinbase network. And that's, I was going to say that's cool. That's not cool. That's nothing I have any interest in.
Yeah.
And so, my goal is really just to promote decentralization, and Rocket Pool is the only solution right now for people with less than 32 Ether that actively decentralizes and promotes the health of the network. Wow. Sorry.
I like it. It's something to hear.
I'm passionate about it. Like, and I'm tired of being ashamed of it. Like people are like, Fizz, you're a Rocket Pool shill. And I'm like, well, I love it. Like I talk about the Beacon Chain because I love it. I don't have to stop talking about things that I love because you're tired of hearing about it. Like maybe just turn me off. I don't know.
No, please stay on. But that's what, like, it's important because, for me, like like Rocket Pool is an amazing one. I had Kirill from Stakewise on the show here too.
Yes.
And he's great. And I think, his work and his team's work is leading in the same direction. I think currently they're not fully decentralized, but they're definitely leaning towards that decentralization. And
I want to shill for them because Stakewise is probably the next closest candidate to something that I could support. Mm-hmm. Kirill is fantastic. He's engaged with the community. They're on the right track. The moment they meet that minimum standard, I am going to I might throw a literal party because they're not making wild claims. They're not, there are products that are like, we are the most decentralized product, and they're not. Stakewise, it's just doing good work. And when they meet that standard, I can't wait to paste their name at the top of whatever ETHstaker and say, this is an awesome opportunity.
Yeah. And I'm excited for them too. I think they're gonna, if they do what they say, they're going to grow into something amazing too. Now that you're in the Ethereum community for a while, a crypto community, I know you work full-time crypto. It's a 24/7 job, but you also have a family. Like, how do you separate your time, your personal hobbies? It's not a tough question. And like, how do you keep like mental health in this industry? Because for me, it's like, I don't work, like, crypto isn't my 24/7 job, but it still feels like it's always on my mind, and I have to step aside often to just take Rudy time, like get my own wholesome time. But what do you do?
Yeah, so that's actually a great topic, and I'm excited to talk about it because my background, I don't like to think of it as mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, psychology, and yes, I was a counselor, but as an adult now, like, I see a therapist every couple of weeks. I love it. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I want to work with people to normalize the idea of seeing a therapist. Mm-hmm. If it's something that you have access to, then there's no shame in seeing a therapist every couple of weeks. Like, I don't have a mental health disorder, but talking with someone and working through my goals and priorities is just really a positive experience for me. And one of the things that I talk with my therapist a lot about is time management in crypto. It's really, it ends up being screen time a lot. Because my wife loves to take pictures of me like staring at my phone, because I'm always like, someone needs help on the internet.
Wait.
My wife is like, but the baby's crying. And I'm like, oh, well, I'll be right back. And they're like, it's a terrible decision. Or, he and my son and I will be playing Legos, and I am, having my face planted in the phone. Like, am I really engaged, mm-hmm. or am I just like in some other world? So, I do get out and exercise every day. I try to get, an hour and a half of exercise, physical exercise every day. But I acknowledge the balance is difficult. And I've really been working on three pillars that I think everyone understands: healthy eating, good exercise, and good sleep. And so, every night at 8:00, this is a lie. I'm just gonna lie straight up.
Okay, go for it.
Every night, I swear that I turn my phone off and leave it in my office and don't see it again till the next day. That's the absolute truth. That's a lie.
The truth is a lie.
Yeah, I don't know. That's my intention.
Yeah,
how's that?
I mean, that's fair. I mean, like, intention setting is important. Manifestation is important. Like, you have to, like, sometimes write down these are my goals for the day. And if one of them is I have to turn off my phone at 8, 10, whatever, it's good to at least have that as a reminder. Because for me, it's like the same. Like, I spend a lot of time, like, again, screen time. I'm like trying to work my regular J job and then also do these podcasts and edit and learn about crypto that I just have. It's hard to get it all in one shot. And like, I have to just sometimes just stop. Like, you know what? It's going to be there tomorrow. Like, I'm going to still have to learn tomorrow. It's never going to end. So I just kind of tell myself, like, enjoy it while it's here and don't worry about saving it for tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your contribution. Like, it is meaningful. And I know that it's an expense for you. Even if you get rewards for it, it is an expense for you. So thank you for putting the time in. And we also have to, this is the difficult thing. Like, we have to prioritize our family, because they're the real life people in the room. And
they see you every day.
I love this interaction, but I should be more willing to put these interactions aside and focus on the people I live with. And it's something that I need to work on. And it's probably something that, like, it may be something I struggle with forever, but I'm having a lot of fun. So I don't have any regrets.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like, you also have to, like, live your best life, and you have to live your best life with your family and make sure they're also having the best time in their lives. And I think that's, like, it sounds like you're achieving that, which is what's most important. Yeah, at like a grand scheme. I'm not saying every.
Yeah, sure. No, I acknowledge. I feel like I do pretty well. I could do significantly better. Like I understand the issues that I'm facing, and I am actively tackling them. That doesn't mean that I've won the battle, so
Yeah,
that's okay.
it is. And now that you're in the crypto space so much, and this is what's taking up a lot of your time, do you have any one that's like has influenced you into in the Ethereum industry or crypto industry, and how is like your relationship with people that influence you the most?
Yeah, so I would probably say I'm going to forget somebody really important, but I would say that probably Danny Ryan and Patricia Worthalter have been my two biggest influences. They are the two guys that I look up to the most. Danny is, I guess you would call him the lead research implementation coordinator for whatever for ETH2, and just watching his progress, over the past 4 years of working toward implementing the beacon chain, and so he's one of the very few people that I think all of us are a bit of an egoist, and I tend to be a bit of an egoist. But if I disagree with him, I don't exactly wonder what he's doing wrong. I wonder what I misunderstand. And so, if you and I disagree, I'm like, well, I'm right and you're wrong. But if he and I disagree, I'm like, well, I'm right and I'm wrong and he's right. So how do I be more like what he understands? So he's just a really good leader for everyone in the space. And then Patricia Worthalter, he's the founder of POAP. He kind of adopted ETHStaker early on, and was like, "Hey, can I hang out with your group?" And we're like, "Sure."
Come on in.
He just brought a lot of wisdom and like a lot of just good common sense to how we might operate things. And it's a little humbling to me because both of those guys are younger than I am, and they're both like better at what they do. I'm okay acknowledging that, but it's like that neat opportunity to just see people who are really skilled at their craft and have an opportunity to learn from them. So I love that.
Yeah, I love POAP and the whole POAP scene. It's like, it's really awesome what they're doing and how they're doing it, because again, like the whole hot topic of Ethereum is gas costs and gas fees, and it's hard to do any transactions for fun because it costs so much money. POAP is a great way to show like, here's some fun things we can do in our industry and ownership, and having these proof of attendance protocols, and just like, it's such a fun scene. I love having them, and yeah, what they're doing is great.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun building up the Rocket Pool community. We integrated a lot of POAPs so the community was great and it was healthy, but when we introduced POAPs, it kind of just it became like a community on steroids. No one wanted to leave the room because
just
no one
knew
like there might be another POAP, so no one leave, and so it ended up like, gosh, we were there 20 hours a day for several weeks, and it was really healthy to build the community. And it was so much fun to just integrate that. But it also ended up becoming a victim of, this POAP farming problem where, farmers or bots would just end up claiming thousands of POAPs almost instantly.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Bots usually ruin everything, huh? So ruin it for everybody else. On that topic, what is your crypto pet peeve that you've been seeing?
My personal philosophy, I don't know if it's philosophy for life or whatever, but it is give more than you take. And so like anytime I'm engaged in something, I want to give what I can, and I don't want to extract more from you than I've given you. And so my pet peeve would be the opposite of that. It is extractors. It is people who say, I am the most important thing. I need to get as much money, value, time, whatever out of this as I can. And so, people, maybe they call themselves investors. I'm just an investor. I don't care about the protocol. I'm just an investor. I think of those people often as extractors. Mm-hmm. They're not here to understand or to grow or to benefit other people. They just want to extract. And I would call that my pet peeve.
That makes a lot of sense because, for a while, again, in the crypto industry, I used to just learn, try to make a profit somehow by trading or something, or just watch and learn as much as I can from other people's hard work. And I wouldn't even hit the like button on YouTube sometimes. I'm like, God.
Yeah.
And like, I guess I got older or something, where I've been in the scene more often. I finally felt like I have to start contributing somehow. Like it's just not fair. And I don't feel good about working or being a part of an industry and not giving back. It just doesn't make sense. Like this is a community effort. And like one thing I always say is like a blockchain is only as powerful as a community contributing to it. And this is my method of contributing back, like trying to at least educate people or share what other people have been working on. Just kind of like, this is the community behind what we're building. This is the community behind Ethereum. This is the community behind Bitcoin. This is the community behind whoever. And
and that's, I love what you're doing. Like it was so easy in the early days. Like if you weren't a programmer, you didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And now I really see like anyone who is willing to give time can contribute to what we're doing. And you're doing it in your way, and it's really valuable, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
So it's kind of a neat thing. Yeah.
It's awesome. And I appreciate that. And it's what I think everyone can do some way, even if it's creating a POAP on your own. It's free, easy, cheap. Like that's a contribution.
And we were talking about Handy before. Like Handy just kind of steps up and is like, "Hey, how can I help?" And he's like producing and creating things. And I'm like, "Yes, you are so awesome." Like, I don't expect anyone to take a vow of poverty. Like I'm not in this for a vow of poverty. I like to benefit, but as I'm on this journey of benefiting, I'm also trying to help other people benefit and to maximize benefit for everyone. And that's really like, that is what a community is. Like we are a group of people who want to maximize benefit for everyone. Yeah. So
it's awesome. And guys, you were saying with Hanny, like I remember him just always sending me POAPs like, Rocket Pool's coming out this one, Rocket Pool's coming out this, and I'm like, sweet, collect them all.
Good friend, yeah.
It's just fun. Yeah, he's taught me a lot, so definitely a good friend. And now that you're focusing so much on crypto, this is your industry and kind of where you're probably, hopefully, I guess the rest of your life kind of career is heading. What would you like if Bitcoin never took off, if blockchain was just failed big time somehow? What would you see yourself doing at this time and point?
Yeah, so I'm not really looking for the takeoff. I'm looking more of like maybe sustainability, like how I don't honestly pay much attention to Bitcoin at all anymore. Like but I focus on Ethereum a lot, and if the price of Ethereum stays at whatever it is right now, I don't even know, it's 3 or 4K. Mm-hmm. If it stayed there for the next 10 years, it wouldn't run me off. It would just. So I would have two questions. What can we do to improve the value in terms of not money, but what can we do to make it bring more value to people? And second, I would honestly ask myself, what am I missing that's going on in other places that maybe Ethereum isn't the leader anymore, and maybe I need to consider something else that if it aligns with my values is something that I want to contribute to. Mm-hmm. And so there are a lot of chains right now. I love to call them ETH killers.
Yeah.
There's so much hype about them and how big they're going to get and how exciting and impressive they are. But then I examine their values and find out we're not really aligned. And so I will describe XRP because that's something, I think it's dead now. I don't know. But XRP, everyone's like, oh, it's going to moon. It's the most important thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's fine. Like, I hope they do well, but their values aren't aligned with mine. So even if they do well, it doesn't mean I'm going to leave what I'm doing to join them. I hope they succeed, but it's not my thing. So I really, probably for the next 30 years, I see myself continuing to develop positive community within Ethereum. And if Ethereum is no longer what it was, then I hope that I have the foresight to find a rich and vibrant community and contribute there.
And yeah, that's awesome. And like, I think that's going to be I think community is still, like we said before, community is such a huge contributor to any success of any project. Not even just in crypto, but that's how everything succeeds.
and it's not just, you can have 1,000 people in a stadium and have zero community. Community really is setting those core values and sharing them for everyone's benefit. And so that is really like my goal is, I'm okay calling myself a community leader because I'm trying to set a high positive standard for what our community is and share that with people who maybe are affiliated but don't yet know who we are. And so like I'm teaching people, we bring benefits and value to everyone. We're not extractors. We care for the world and the planet. We want the world to be a better place. That is who we are as Ethereum people. And that's just what I want to share.
Who's the, I guess, what other community do you align with the most then? Other than, of course, Ethereum, but.
Yeah. So my communities, I think there are 4 right now. I actually wrote them down the other day because I was like, these are things that I need to make sure that overall Ethereum, like the global scope of Ethereum, that's who I am. ETH Staker is my highest alignment. And then you have things like ETH Finance and Rocket Pool, and they're probably there. And then next would be ENS. And that's sort of a happy accident because I was chosen by a lot of people as an ENS delegate. And so
yeah, I saw that.
That makes me feel like, I've always loved ENS, but now I recognize that I have some responsibility here. So
how do you feel about that?
I would say, and then POAP also. Yeah. POAP is probably up there as well.
How do you feel about being an important ENS delegate?
So I'm super honored. Like, it's weird. I did not expect it to happen like that. Like I did apply, and JT Nickel is another a friend of mine from ETH Finance, and I really thought that I would be promoting him, but I guess for whatever reason he didn't apply or it didn't work out, and so I was like, well, let me look for some other people who I think would do a great job. And it's funny because I didn't know a ton of the delegates, and as I'm watching, like I kept getting more and more delegations, and I was like, oh well, this might be a thing that's going to happen. So it was really a pleasant surprise. Like I know I have some friends, I have maybe a lot of friends, but I just didn't expect to have that many delegates. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's what happens when you're a community leader. Because and JT, I know him from Grid Plus. I had Justin on here too, which was awesome.
Yes, great choice.
Awesome guy. He lives like not too far from me too, which is awesome.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so that's another great community that I love to hang out in and talk with. But yeah, so like you and I think 2 people that I knew, or I guess 3 that were delegates were you, Lefteris, and Brantley. Awesome. Everyone's like, I love that community too. It's such a great, like, let's get it going. Web3, it's like gonna be the best thing, and such like that's like positive movement, and I love watching it grow and becoming the next big thing, even with large corporations going into it, which is, it's kind of like I guess large corporations always have that stigma, like they don't really care about anything else other than like profits. But it's also nice seeing like you kind of need them to help with mainstream recognition. So it's a double-edged sword.
Oh yeah,
it's good to see that.
I'm still in this transition of, I still think of ENS as a tool rather than a community, and so I'm moving toward that shift because as a tool, like I'm obviously aware of the founders and organizers, but I wasn't really aware much of the community behind it, and that's something that I'm just now getting familiarized with. So
yeah, I think the NFT community really pushed them over with the NFT PFPs, and
that's POAP helped a lot too, because in POAP you kind of need to have an ENS to have a recognizable wallet. Like we always like push, get an ENS, and so I would say there's a very strong NFT community and a very strong POAP community, and I definitely fall more into the POAP side of that.
For sure,
because I haven't. If you look at my wallet, like I've blown too much money on NFTs. That's me having fun being stupid. I don't really think there's a ton of value in the what I call the JPEG NFTs. so it's not really my thing, but I do love that it has helped our ecosystem make progress. So that's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the thing about. One thing I like noticed, like different trends of the crypto industry, is how like at a certain point, like, oh, everyone's working together. There's Bitcoin, Ethereum, Purecoin, all these like Litecoin. Everyone's like, yeah, we're all happy and figuring out blockchain's going to change the world. Then it's becoming like more separated and like, nah, you suck. You're the terrible one. We're going to become the ETH killer. We're going to become Bitcoin killer. And we're going to, it's like, this isn't the message that was originally created back in 2009, 10, 11. Like this wasn't the goal. And I hate like that. I don't know what happened, but it feels like the whole blockchain crypto industry has like shifted. And I really like what you're doing, like trying to make it realign itself to where we should be going towards.
Yeah. If I tend to imagine Satoshi as a single individual, and I don't know what the truth is, mm-hmm. but even though he launched Bitcoin as an open source protocol, I don't think that he predicted there would be so many splinters of it. And I don't think he could have predicted Ethereum based on what he knew at the time. But I also I can't personify him, but I do think this is the right direction for the growth of cryptocurrency. So
yeah, well, I think I think Hal Finney did say something about needing, I guess, different layers on top of blockchain just because of transactions and the amount of growth and speed that's needed to actually make this work. But
yeah, and that's the early response. And I don't want to spend time talking about Bitcoin, but the early response to that was like, we want there to be a lot of altcoins because we're going to find out the things that they did right and then reintegrate them into Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. And it really seems like at some point Bitcoin is calcified rather than growing. And that's okay. Like I still hold some Bitcoins. Like it's fine, but I really don't find their ecosystem to be something that excites me.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. Yeah, and I guess to ask you my favorite last question, what is your favorite wholesome crypto moment?
Wow, this is gonna. How long do I have? Like 10.
You can have as much as you want. Go for it. We didn't freeze, folks. We were just thinking.
Yeah, I'm like, really? And I'm a deep thought.
Take your time.
I don't know if it's a moment. I think it's more of an aura. Because I'm like, what is to me the most wholesome thing in crypto? And it's really any engagement with JT Nickel, like Jeremiah, because anytime I've observed any user interacting with Jeremiah, he is just like this big loving hug. Like he treats everyone with love and kindness, and that to me is probably, and I know that's not this insightful moment, but just exposure to the way that he treats people, I think, is so healthy for all of us. That to me is the most wholesome thing.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I love that answer because people make things wholesome, and it's nice seeing that. Twitter's getting a little bit toxic, and I'm just always excited when I see something wholesome being said or some argument ending in a wholesome resolution. It's just like good people conversating, getting to a conclusion, and feeling good at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'm really conflict averse, and so Twitter was hard for me because I know it's like a hotbed of conflict, and I tend to thrive where I'm not in a conflict situation. So it's very easy for me to just like hide people that are there for conflict. And so I feel like right now I don't see a lot of that. I see a lot of in my bubble, which I'm okay with. Like I had mentioned before, I like an echo chamber. In my bubble, I feel like it's a wholesome and supportive group, and I really enjoy that.
Love it. Well, thank you, Superphiz, for hanging out with me today, and loved learning about you and your history. It's probably so much more to discuss, but I'm looking forward to what you're contributing and how you're becoming a leader for explaining staking for us, for people. And yeah, I look forward to what you continue on doing.
Thank you. And I appreciate you for adding value to the space. I think it's a good model for other people. So thanks for your time.
Thank you. See you, everybody.